Hey there, and welcome. If you're getting ready for the IELTS exam, you probably know that the speaking test can feel like a total black box. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and give you the keys to crack that code. Let's jump right in.
Have you ever found yourself in that room across from the examiner just wondering, what are they actually writing down? What are they listening for? What's the real difference between an okay score and a fantastic one? Well, that's exactly what we're about to uncover. Think of this as your secret peek inside the examiner's playbook.
All right, first up, let's do a super quick refresher on the structure of the test. Now, even if you feel like you know this stuff, it's so important to see how each part is designed to build on the one before.
So, the whole thing kicks off with part 1. And really, you should just think of this as a warm-up. The examiner's going to ask you some pretty straightforward questions about familiar things. You know, your hometown, your job, what you like to do for fun. The goal here is simple. It's just to get you talking and settled in.
Okay, then we move on to part 2, what they call the long turn. You'll get a cue card with a topic on it, kind of like this one. You get just 1 minute to prep your thoughts, and then you have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes straight. This is really where they test your ability to structure your thoughts and just talk for a solid chunk of time.
And that brings us to the final piece, part 3. This part is directly linked to whatever you just talked about in part 2, but the questions get a whole lot deeper and more abstract. The examiner is going to push you to think about bigger, more complex ideas. This is your chance to really show you can handle a sophisticated discussion.
Okay, so we've got the structure down. But here's the million-dollar question. How do they actually score you? This, right here, is the most critical part of this whole explainer. I want you to forget all the crazy myths you might have heard. There are only 4 things that actually matter. Let's call them the 4 scoring keys.
And here they are, the big 4. Every single mark you get comes from your performance in these 4 areas: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. And get this, each one is weighted exactly the same, 25% across the board. So let's break down what they actually mean.
First up, fluency and coherence. So, what's this mean? Well, fluency is pretty simple. Can you speak smoothly without stopping and starting all the time? And coherence? That's just about making sense. Do your ideas flow logically? Are you using little signposts, words like so, because, on the other hand, to help the listener follow your train of thought?
All right, number 2 is lexical resource, which is really just a fancy way of saying vocabulary. But listen, it's not about dropping a bunch of big words. It's about showing you have a wide range of vocabulary, and that you can use it precisely. Can you use some less common phrases? Can you paraphrase? Say the same thing, but with different words so you don't sound repetitive. That's the good stuff.
Key number 3, grammatical range and accuracy. And notice there are 2 parts to that name, for a reason. Range means you're not just using the same simple sentence over and over. You're mixing it up. And accuracy, well, that just means your grammar is correct. To really hit those top bands, you've got to show you can handle complex sentences and get them right most of the time.
And finally, our 4th key, pronunciation. Okay, let's get one thing straight right off the bat. This has nothing to do with having a specific accent. You do not need to sound British or American. It's all about one thing: clarity. Can the examiner understand you easily? This covers everything from how you say individual sounds to the rhythm and music of your speech.
Okay, so we know the 4 keys, but what does that actually look like in a real test? What's the practical difference between a pretty good score, say a band 6, and a great score, like a band 8? Let's dig into what that jump really looks like.
Just look at this table. You can really see the jump. For fluency, a band 6 speaker might hesitate so much that it's hard to follow them, but at band 8, any hesitation is natural, just you thinking about the topic, not searching for words. Or look at vocabulary, inappropriate at times for a band 6 versus skillful use of less common words for a band 8. And for grammar, it's the difference between making frequent errors in complex sentences and having the vast majority of your sentences be totally error-free. It's a huge leap.
All right, that's the theory, but how do you actually do this? Let's take what we've learned and apply it to a real question so you can see how it all comes together.
Let's grab a simple-sounding question from part 1, one we saw earlier. Do you enjoy being the age you are now? Seems easy, right? But this little question is a perfect chance to show off all 4 of those scoring keys.
So a top-tier answer isn't going to be a simple yes or no. For fluency and coherence, you'd probably talk about a pro and a con, and you'd link those ideas together smoothly. For lexical resource, you might pop in an idiomatic phrase like, I really feel like I'm in the prime of my life.
For grammar, maybe you'd use a complex sentence like, "While I definitely miss some things about being younger, I wouldn't trade the wisdom I have now for anything." And your pronunciation? Well, your voice would have some life in it. Your intonation would show that you're actually thinking and feeling something about the answer. You see how they all work together to create one great impression?
So, there you have it. We've cracked the code. We've looked at the structure. We've unlocked the 4 scoring keys, and we've seen exactly what separates the good from the great. So, what now? What does this all mean for you?
And that really brings us to the most important part of all this. The big question is for you. Now that you know the examiner's playbook, I want you to ask yourself, which of these 4 keys is your biggest opportunity? Where can you make the most improvement? Is it speaking more smoothly, expanding your vocabulary, nailing those complex sentences, or making sure your pronunciation is crystal clear? Because figuring that out, that is your first real step toward getting the score you deserve. Thanks for joining me.